2, 1.
DogWorks Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dog Works. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com.
You can support this podcast on patreon.com/firstpawmedia.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by First Paw Coffee Company, specializing in private label premium blend coffee. If you're serious about coffee, you should check it out. First Paw Coffee's passion is high-quality, small-batch roasted coffee. They take the extra time to taste and get everything perfect before they release new blends. They aim to bring you a cup of happiness each time you pour yourself some coffee. Find out more at ak.dog/free and enter for a chance to win some First Paw Coffee prizes, a book from our collection, and tote bag. One winner will be selected at random each month. That's ak.dog/free.
Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Robert Forto, and you're listening to DogWorks Radio here on KVRF 89.7 in the Mat-Su Valley. RadioFreePalmer.org is our live streaming site. You can find all of our episodes over on dogworksradio.com. Be sure to check us out on social media by searching DogWorks Radio. And today I am behind the mic. Michelle is taking the week off, and we're going to do another interview with one of our trainers here at Alaska Dog Works. It happens to be my daughter, Nicole Forto. She has been training dogs since she was 8 or 9 years old. She was brought up in this business, and after a couple of years of a hiatus, she is back with us, and looking forward to hearing what she has to say. And you're going to hear that interview right after the intro. Here we go.
From First Paw Media, sponsored by Alaska Dog Works Professional Canine Training Center in Alaska. This is DogWorks Radio, committed to families and their dogs to build lifelong and fulfilling relationships. Visit our website at dogworksradio.com. Now here are your hosts, Robert and Michelle Forto.
Hi guys, this is Robert, and today we're joined by a canine trainer here at Alaska Dog Works. Her name is Nicole Forto, and she has been training dogs for a long time. I'm interested to hear what she has to say. She's just back into the business with us. Nicole, thank you for joining us on the show. Can you introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you're all about real quick, please?
Yeah, of course. So thank you for having me initially. I'm Nicole Forto. I am you and Michelle's daughter. I've been, around dogs since I could walk pretty much. It feels like, and I've been training them since about 9 years old, like you said, and I took a little bit of a break, but I kind of realized in the adult world that kind of where home is for me is training dogs and helping people build better relationships with their dogs. And so that's really kind of what I'm all about, is to help people have a better relationship and foundation with their dogs.
So, Nicole, you have a little bit of a history with dog training. As we mentioned, you've been doing this since you were a little kid. And in the middle there, when you were a teenager, you were heavily involved with dog mushing. You did the junior Iditarod twice and a couple of other mid-distance junior races. So my first question to you is, being brought up with dogs, not only pet dogs and their clients, but also a pack of sled dogs, how has that influenced the way that you look at the canine species?
I think all of my experience with dogs, whether it be dog sports or dog training, has always brought me to the point that dogs are not an inanimate object for us to just, I have this thing. They're their own being, and they develop relationships with us through trust, and through that we can learn so much. And for me, dogs were always something that pushed me to learn independence and learn to trust not only my dogs, but myself and my own instincts for any kind of situation and everyday world things.
Very good. And as we mentioned, you've worked a lot with Siberian and Alaskan Huskies as a dog musher. You've worked with your own dogs, German Shepherds, both with Kane, who has passed on, and now with Watson, a couple-year-old German Shepherd that was in training to be a service dog but did not quite make it. So we're going to talk a lot about those dogs as we're going. But one of the first questions new clients ask when they're calling up dog trainers and to find out what they're all about is to figure out what a personal training philosophy is. Now, often clients don't know what that means, but almost every dog trainer and dog trainer's website has something to the effect of what they feel is their mission to train dogs. What is your personal training philosophy?
I would have to say that my training philosophy, or kind of the way that I do things, is that training your dog and interacting with your dog should always be a fun experience or a positive experience, because dogs are so inept to understand our feelings and the way our emotions are running, that they have this connection through us, through the way that we feel, and they're never going to listen or learn if we're constantly leading from a negative or I don't want to do this kind of mindset. So you want to see training as always a fun activity that you get to enjoy with your dog, and it shouldn't be a chore.
Very good. And we mentioned, Nicole, that you've been involved in the dog training business since you were about 9 years old. You're in your early 20s now, but of course, folks don't know how long you've actually had boots on the ground, so to speak. So how long have you been in business, and what type of training services do you offer right now?
So I would say as an adult, I've been in business for the last 5 years or so, 6 years, kind of here and there. I took a break for a few years to kind of be an adult and learn the adult world, because I was 20 at the time and needed to go learn things on my own the hard way somewhat. And then now that I'm back in it and that I'm wanting to be back in it, it feels like all of the experience between 9 to 20, which is 10 years, is all still there, and now I'm just in a much more mature place, and I'm able to share that with other people and help them get to build these good relationships with their dogs.
So with that, being that you started as a youngster, how did you get started? Did you just kind of just show up and grab a leash with dogs at our training center, or did you have specific clients or dogs that you worked with?
So when I started with you guys and was there more often at the business helping out, a lot of the times I was working with service dogs who were going to children. So my experience began with kids who were disabled or had mental health problems, and helping them get to know and be comfortable with their dog, and being able to show them that they were able to utilize their dog in the way that they needed to. And so all of my experience stems from working with kids a few years younger than me, sometimes a little bit older than me, depending on what our clientele was. And then from there, it pushed us and myself into my breed of choice, which would be German Shepherds. And I got Kane, and then that pushed me to learning about protection training. And from there, it just kind of stemmed that I wanted to know all that I could about the dog training world. And even now, 10 years later, 13 years later, it still is a rapidly changing world. And there's new things that I have no idea about, like tri-ball, that I know we're starting. And I'm just excited for the ball that always is rolling and always is changing and always is learning something new.
So, Nicole, you brought up a couple of good things there. First off, you said that you were working with kids that were in need of a service dog for one thing or another. And, of course, often you will hear on the other side of the dog training world, where kids are part of the family with their dog, and often you will hear parents say, "Well, we got Johnny or Susie a dog, and they're going to help take care of it and help train it," and that often doesn't last past the first month or two. So that's a little bit of a question in regard to that. And then the second question is, you said breed of choice was German Shepherd. And if you think again, going back to kids, often they are influenced by the dogs that they have because of the choice that the parents make. So if the parents are fond of Siberians or Labradors or whatever, that becomes the breed that the kid is used to because they are brought up with that dog. So the first question is, what do you think about the kid being thrust into the responsibility of having a dog and taking care of it, no matter how old they are, whether they're 6 years old or 15 years old? And then secondly, what about that breed of choice? How did you come to find that yours was that German Shepherd?
So the first question is the how would I connect kids with getting dogs early on?
No, what are your thoughts behind a parent that says that Johnny or Susie is going to take part in Max's training, whether they like it or not? They are going to be responsible for this dog that we got them for Christmas or we rescued from the shelter or whatever. What are your thoughts on that as a kid growing up? And then secondly, your breed of choice.
Oh, okay. So my thoughts on that would be that if you as a parent were making the choice that you are giving your kids this lump of responsibility and it wasn't necessarily something they asked for, putting all of that responsibility solely on them and dependent on them, I wouldn't think is personally fair. And I would go for it from a different perspective, and that if you're going to ask for a dog and we're getting you this puppy for Christmas, for your birthday, for whatever it is, it's a family decision because everybody in the household needs to be on board. Otherwise, the puppy will listen to one person, usually mom or dad, and then it's going to run all over the kids and it's not going to listen to them whatsoever. And that usually is when, as dog trainers, we see, well, my dog is running over the baby and knocking my kids down when they come home from school. And it's all about, well, you have to teach every person in this household the foundation for this dog to learn. And so it's something that should really be looked at and discussed as a family, I think. Kids involved as well, even if they're as young as 6, because at that point, they're more than capable of saying, yeah, I'm going to be on board. I'll help with feeding. I'll listen to you, mom, or you, dad, about what I'm supposed to do with the dog and how I'm supposed to interact with the dog so everybody is safe and no one's getting hurt and the dog is listening and being constructively learning.
And what about your breed of choice? How did you get involved with the German Shepherds, and why do you still work with those dogs now?
So my breed of choice, I would definitely say, was maybe slightly influenced by you guys, just because circumstantially in the time that I got Kane as a puppy, my first German Shepherd, you guys were starting kind of the breeding world and we're looking at doing German Shepherds for the service dog program. So it was kind of just perfect timing, and I really wanted a puppy. And I remember distinctly that originally I was going to get a border collie and I was going to do agility with it, and that was what I was going to do until I met the German Shepherd puppies and I fell in love with protection training and just their whole aura in general of you're by your side and that's it. They are very much like a one person or one family dog, and they are protectors. And I think that's where I fell in love with them. And so now as the years have gone on, I had Kane for 13 years, And that's, half my lifetime that I spent with him. And he was my best friend, and we did everything together, and it was me and him against the world. And for me, going back to German Shepherds is just like where it feels the most safe and the most content, because again, they're by your side for life once they've chosen you, and they will protect you no matter what.
That's good stuff there, Nicole. So one other question in regard to the breed of choice. Do you think by having a strong bond with one breed over the other, as you know, I'm very Siberian specific. I've had those guys since I was 16 or 17 years old. Do you think having that much of experience with one breed either influences you or puts you at a disadvantage to other breeds that you're working with in training?
I think if you let it be that that breed is solely the only breed you want to work with or interact with, then it totally can diminish your ability to go farther in training. But I don't see it as something that if you love this breed, you can learn it and learn their personality and use it to work with not only other breeds of dogs, but mixed breeds of dogs, where you can pinpoint, oh, okay, this pit bull is mixed with a husky, so while it's a very loving dog, it's also very stubborn, and vice versa with any other kind of combination. I just think that it helps add to our knowledge to know about not just your breed of choice, but other breeds, like how my breed of choice is a German Shepherd, but yours is a Siberian Husky, but I know both of us know a lot about either or breed.
Yep, for sure. So now that we've got a heck of a lot of background knowledge on you, Nicole, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the business side of dog training. And my next question is, how do you get business right now, and what is your relationship with veterinarians and other professionals in your community?
So currently I promote business through Alaska Dog Works on your guys' Facebook page, through the radio. I know we're thinking about doing a Zoom for our live videos that we do. And I also have started kind of almost branding myself and promoting myself via Instagram with my own tag and tagging the business as well. That way the clients I have now can see, and it's all the word of mouth when it comes to small business. And so as many people can see that, hey, that's my dog and she's training my dog with Alaska Dog Works, is it's boosting all of it for all of us. And that's what I really want, is to help not only boost myself, but boost the business to be bigger and better.
Very
and
good.
Along with, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I understand that you have a pretty close relationship with a vet down in Anchorage. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I do. Her Dr. Grimes at VCA, the one that is near UAA off of Lake Otis. I had a very, very close relationship with her over the last 4 years or so, and we got even closer in the last year when my German Shepherd was going through the last year of his life, and she was great for advice, great for being there, especially during the pandemic when it became where when I took him in, I could not go in with him. And she would always reassure me that he'd be okay with her, and she was the one that would come out and get him. She did not make me have to give him over to one of the vet techs. She was always on top of it, and when he started his new medication regimen, she was texting me personally every few days just to check in on him. And for me, that was so important and such a big deal, because he was my best friend, and I didn't want to just leave him in the care of who knows what. And I didn't want him to suffer. And she was always very honest and open about what he was feeling and what he was going through. And so she is definitely someone I would say is a good friend, someone I would recommend to clients, and who I would take Watson to in an emergency if we had to go immediately.
So that's great advice to dog owners, is to develop that relationship with your vet, in particular in times of COVID and the lockdowns that are still going on. it is imperative that we have a good relationship with them. So, as a dog trainer, how important is it to have a working relationship with that vet? What kind of give and take parts of that relationship can you give to each other?
I think it's good to have a relationship business wise with a vet, especially one where you can have a little bit of a personal side to it because pets are people's babies. Dogs are usually often thought of as people's children. So it's just the same as finding a pediatrician for your child. You want to be able to know that they're going to be taken care of and taken seriously and not put in harm's way. And so I know that's a big deal for having a good relationship with the vet, as well as then being able to maybe they run into someone who's having some kind of behavioral issues or just needs some help building foundation for their dog. They can then in turn recommend me as a dog trainer or Alaska Dog Works as a training company. That way, everybody in the circle of business is getting help and we're helping the dog and the people.
That's good advice for sure. So, what are the three most important things to teach a dog when you start a training program or you advise new pet owners?
I think the three most important things to teach a dog or to teach people with their relationship with their dogs is respect, boundaries, and trust. Because dog training is not just let me teach you how to sit and down and stay. It's building these foundations of respect towards one another and understanding the boundaries of one another's abilities and trusting each other to know how to help them through each situation. For example, if you have a dog who you know is shy of other dogs, you wouldn't go force it to be at a dog park because it trusts you not to put it in harm's way. And so building that respect, boundaries, and trust together is why I think that's like the most important thing.
So, what do you think is the most challenging type of case that you work with pets? Is it basic obedience? Is it advanced obedience? Is it that foundation that you were talking about, or what?
The most challenging thing in dog training is not training the dog. For sure, it has nothing to do with the basic obedience or anything like that. It really is getting owners or families to understand that the training with the dog is consistency is key. So you have to be able to put in the work and the time and the effort that it takes to continually build your foundation and keep that foundation with your dog. So the most challenging thing as a dog trainer for me is definitely to teach people the need for the consistency with their dog.
Very good. So, the next question is one that often people may not think of because in dog training, it's a really close knit, or I should say, hold to your vest type community, meaning we don't branch out a lot with other trainers. So this question may throw some people off a little bit, but what advice would you give to other trainers about working with dogs and their owners? So I guess you're giving away the secrets, if you will.
I think any advice, whether you're a dog trainer and you own a business or you're simply someone trying to get through watching YouTube videos and reading as many dog training articles as you can, is that having patience with your dog and in training is kind of a big deal because a dog is its own being. It thinks its own way. It has its own processing thoughts. So it's not going to learn a new skill overnight. It's not going to listen to you every moment of every day. It's going to not want to listen and not want to deal with you telling it what to do. So you have to be able to have patience to go through the rough days and the rough patches of training and keep pushing forward. That way you guys are keeping your consistency and still building your relationship together.
So when we interviewed your mom here on the podcast, I asked her a couple of questions that were a little bit difficult to answer, and I'm going to ask you these same ones. And we've said early in this show, Nicole, that you've been doing this a long time. You've been doing this for what, almost 14, 15 years for now. So you've been doing you've been holding a leash for a long time. So my question to you is, if a person's just getting involved in the business side of dog training, they want to have dog training as their career, what would be one thing that they should focus on right this minute? Meaning they're just going into business, they don't have a lot of clients yet, they may not be working for a trainer, they're just getting started. What would be one thing that they should focus on?
Oh, that's a hard one. That is. I would say for just starting out, the one thing, maybe kind of broad, but the one thing to focus on is to, I don't know how to put it into good words, kind of building your platform almost. So don't limit yourself. I wouldn't go into business today and say, all right, I'm only taking German Shepherds, and that's the only dog that I'm going to train, and I'm only doing basic obedience. Because that, to me, just makes your pool of clients so small that I don't think you could ever get up off your feet. So I definitely say to have a broad platform or broad knowledge, the willingness to know and work with a wide range of dogs and people and what their needs are.
Very good. And for folks that remember listening to our interview with Michelle, you can find it over at dogworksradio.com/Michelle Forto. She answered this next question from the understanding of a late 40s-year-old dog trainer. And the question is, Nicole, and I'm really interested to hear what you have to say because you're obviously a generation behind, is what is one thing that people should absolutely not focus on, should throw out the window, should not worry about it at all? And Michelle said they should stick with not focusing on social media. They should work on other things other than trying to build their brand on social media and all of that. Now, your generation is much different. You guys were brought up in social media. Everything is done on your phones. You know, that's how you connect. That's how you date. That's how you buy things. That's how you order your food. So it's a different world for a person your age. So what is your one thing that a new dog trainer should not focus on?
Should not focus on. Oh, that's also a very, very tough one. And I like Michelle's answer, but as you said, from a different generational perspective, social media is such a far-reaching thing that I wouldn't put it as my number one thing not to do.
So what is it then?
But I would say, oh gosh, it's hard. I can't pinpoint one thing. I would have to say that maybe don't overshare your business. So definitely promote yourself, put yourself out there, show people what you're doing, but you don't have to show them what you're doing all the time and 24/7, because you want to be able to have that personal relationship. So maybe I'd agree a little bit with Michelle on the don't focus too hard on social media, but also don't focus on it not so much that you're not being able to connect with a wider array of audience, because it gives you that ability.
I think both of you guys provided great advice there, whether it's pro or con for social media. Pro, definitely to get your name out there, to promote your brand. But again, Nicole, I know you've heard me say this forever. You can't train a heck of a lot of dogs if you're constantly taking pictures and you're constantly on Facebook. Is that right?
Right, exactly. No, you got to save the Facebook post and the picture taken for appropriate times and definitely not in the face of your clients. But that's what we have you for as our media guru over there, so we don't have to worry about it too much.
Right, for sure. So, Nicole, the next question is an interesting story, and that is, what was your scariest moment with a dog or a client?
My scariest moment, I know when I went over these questions, I answered it with a very minimal kind of experience, but to me, it was really scary. And at the time, it was really, really scary because I was so much younger. Anyways, though, so when I was about 12, we were assisting training with a very cute little Labradoodle puppy. I believe he was only 2 or 3 months old, very much still a puppy, not grown at all yet. And I was helping my mom, Michelle, teach him how to cradle, which helps them with nail clipping later on, kind of gives them the submissive feel of training. And I was doing that, and he leaped out of my arms and landed on the ground and immediately screamed. And it was a scream that I had never heard a dog make before, and I never want to hear it again, that's for sure. Anyways, a vet trip later, this puppy ended up breaking his leg, wrist, somewhere, not like the end of the world, but very scary and horrific for me. And I just remember crying my eyes out, and the owners crying, but them also being so understanding that a puppy's going to do what a puppy does and things happen. And they weren't mad. We were all very just emotional. And to this day, ever since I cradle a puppy or try to practice cradling a puppy, I start on the ground and never in the air because I'm scared to death that it would happen again.
And if I remember correctly, Nicole, that was a really big VIP client. I believe that they were a big time star with the Colorado Rockies baseball team. Is that right?
I think you're totally right.
Yeah. So not only was it just a scary situation with the dog, of course, and breaking its leg, but it was a big time person in the local Denver community, and often we are either made or broken by the reputations of how we communicate with our clients. And that was a person I remember when you guys called him up, and he went to the vet and got his little cast on. You had to make sure that they were well taken care of because they were a VIP client, weren't they?
Yeah. And me being 12, that was not my first worry, but I'm sure for you and Michelle, that was like number one thing is, oh my goodness, we have to get this communicated to them and hopefully things will be okay.
Right. So the next question is, what would you say are the top 3 things that you have personally learned as a dog trainer?
The top 3 things that I've learned as a trainer would probably go hand in hand with the top 3 things that I choose to teach your dog is the patience and the trust and the boundary building, which builds confidence within not only their abilities, the dogs, but also ours, and to trust each other, to guide each other through these circumstances and things we're trying to teach and learn together newly, especially if you haven't had a dog before and you haven't trained before. So when I boil it down to it, the top 3 things that I would say are the most important things you can take away from dog training or from um, the relationship with your dog is just that a dog and you is a relationship, and a relationship takes work, and it takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes that foundation building and that continuous upkeep of that foundation to work.
Very good. So, in the time of COVID, I know that going to seminars and workshops are very difficult and few and far between. But when we are in the in the regular world, there are training seminars and workshops about just about every topic, whether it's an aggression centric seminar or workshop, or canine first aid, or aggressive dogs or reactive dogs, or how to become a better dog trainer or a business owner or whatever. If you could go to a seminar right now and learn one specific thing from a expert in their field, what would you want to learn about?
I would have to say that I would want to learn more about dog sports as a whole. Not necessarily a specific one, but dog sports from anything from agility to canicross to ski joring to weight pulling. I just would love to gain more knowledge about those things because they're great things that I can offer to clients or to the business as a whole, other than just, hey, I've gotten you to Canine Good Citizen and I've passed you, and that's great. But now let's do something even more with your dog. You know what I mean?
Yep. Whether it be rally or beginning agility, or as you mentioned, other dog sports that are out there. And I don't think people understand how many sports that there are. Some of them are very breed specific, whether it's herding trials for the herding dogs, or earth dog trials for the terriers, or barn hunts, or scent work. There's all sorts of different sports that people can do with their dogs. And of course, I'm sure in the time before COVID, there were seminars and workshops with all of those. If you remember correctly, Nicole, back in the early days, we were involved with the German Shepherd Club in Denver. We also went to a lot of obedience trials and confirmation shows, and we would always watch those very specific training routines with particularly with German Shepherds, because that's what we were dealing with. But that's what we're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, and funny enough, there's like a picture way deep down on the Facebook of Kane and I when he was maybe 1 or 2, very, very young though, for sure. And we were doing like practice obedience in one of the rings. And I've got, my black hoodie on and my hair in my face and very, punky teen phase, but still doing dog training.
Right. So, Nicole, earlier you talked about folks finding out information on YouTube. That seems to be the go-to place right now. And I know that Michelle and I watch a lot of other trainers on YouTube and how they do things, and we compare and contrast a lot, and I'm sure you do as well. Aside from YouTube, of course, there are a plethora of books and other materials out there. Can you recommend one or two that you think are good for not only maybe dog trainers, but dog owners themselves?
I would say for one that I know we offer would definitely be the Understanding Drive Behaviors book that we offer online, I think through the website. It's great because it really gives people the view of how their dog's brains kind of work, and the way that they process through their decision making is all kind of based through these drive behaviors that they have. So that one would definitely be probably number one. Number two would be The Loved Dog. It's a book by Tamar Geller, and she bases her foundation of training and what she goes about solely on the communication with your dog. And from my experience being in the mental health field, working with teens and children and adults with learning disabilities, mental health disabilities, physical disabilities, is that in any kind of relationship, communicating on a level that the other person, the other being understands is key. And so her book really kind of hones in on you being able to learn how to communicate with your dog effectively. And for my basis of training, my basis for training is to know that communication and to build that communication ability between you and your dog.
Is there anything else you would like to add before we go, Nicole?
I would just like to say that for me, my goal for dog training, whether you have a question for me or you're gonna pay for all my lessons to be done, is that I am, and my goal for myself in the dog training world is to assist families and their dogs to have better functioning relationships together.
Very good. And how can folks find you online if they're interested in learning more about you?
So definitely through Alaska Dog Works, our website, or on Facebook. And you can find me personally on Instagram through n.ak.dogtrainer. And you guys can follow all my camp dogs that I do at Alaska Dog Works and my private lessons and maybe some tips and tricks and some throwback photos to that punky teen stage. It's all on there.
Very good. So we're talking to Nicole Forto. She is a pro trainer. That's what we call them here at Alaska Dog Works. Currently, she works with clients and their dogs in the Anchorage area. Of course, the Anchorage Bowl extending from Eagle River all the way to Girdwood, as well as with our camp dogs here up in Willow. And she works with group classes and Canine Good Citizen and pretty much anything and everything with the family dog. And of course, we're going to introduce other programs as we go, and she will definitely be involved with that. So I think that Nicole will be a great member to our team. We've branched out quite a bit here since the COVID mess. We've added 2 trainers to our staff, and of course Nicole is one of them. And we interviewed another one of our trainers, Carrie Brofil, a few weeks ago right here on the podcast. You can find all of those episodes over on dogworksradio.com, as well as over on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Amazon Music, or whatever. Nicole, thank you for joining us today, and we'll talk again soon, okay?
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you. On behalf of our guest today, Nicole Forto, this is Robert Forto. We will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by First Paw Coffee Company. Learn more at firstpaw.coffee.
Did you know that Alaska Dog Works trains service dogs for those in need throughout North America? Each and every service dog that is trained through the Lead Dog Service Dog Program and Michelle Forto and her team has an individual training plan. We train for autistic, mobility, psychiatric, and PTSD for our soldiers for service work. If you know of someone that may need a service dog, please take a moment and check out Alaska Dog Works on social media and at alaskadogworks.com.